Welcome to IJ4EU Confidential, where we go behind the scenes of groundbreaking investigative journalism. I'm Timothy Large from the International Press Institute in Vienna, and as always, we have a live audience as we get the inside scoop on stories supported by our IJ4EU Fund for cross-border reporting. So welcome to you all. Please do take part in the conversation by asking your questions in the chat function. And as always, we promise to get to them in real time. So we like to have a good conversation here. Today, we're going to be talking about AI and algorithms in our justice systems. Now, older audience members may remember that Hollywood blockbuster Minority Report. Does that ring a bell? Tom Cruise plays the head of a crime unit that uses psychic technology to convict murderers before they do their murdering. Now, this may sound kind of far-fetched, and I guess it is, but I was reminded of this when I heard about the kind of predictive policing that's being used across Europe today. Don't worry, there's no psychic technology, at least not quite yet, but these data systems use algorithms to predict the likelihood of individuals committing future crimes. The problem is, these algorithms are secretive and they're flawed. And these are algorithms that form conclusions about people and their lives that can be literally life-changing. So, for example, they can spell the difference between spending time in prison or being free. Authorities use them to predict everything from the likelihood of a young person reoffending to the risk of prisoners committing another crime as they're being reviewed for parole. And often the people whose lives are affected haven't got a single clue they're being judged by AI. How do we know this? Because a group of intrepid journalists have teamed up across borders to unlock the secrets of these decision machines. That's the name of their investigation. The team spent a year painstakingly reverse engineering algorithms that are used in the criminal justice systems in Spain, Italy, and the Netherlands. And what they found was pretty damn alarming. To tell us about it, we're joined by one of the reporters who took part. Pablo Jiménez Arandia is an investigative journalist from Spain who exposed the inner workings of the Riscanvi algorithm used in Catalan prisons. And we'll be hearing a lot about Riscanvi today. We were hoping to be joined by another team member, Pierluigi Bizzini, who worked on the Italian side of the story, but unfortunately events have intervened and he can't make it. But fear not, we're in excellent hands with Pablo, who joins us from the road where he's out on assignment. So welcome, Pablo. Great to see you. Where are you right now?
Hi, Tim, and hi, everybody. Well, first of all, thanks for having me here, and it's a pleasure to talk with you all about this project that, together with, as you said, Pierluigi and Evelyn, who are not here today, we've been working like for more than a year. And yeah, so I'm right now I'm from Spain. I'm based in Barcelona, but I'm right now in Santiago de Chile. I'm working here in the field. In a different project, also related with AI and technologies, but not specifically about the use of algorithms and AI in the public sector, but more focus on the AI infrastructure, right? Like all the server farms that are behind the AI tools and services that we use in our daily life.
We look forward to that story at a future time. But let's get into the whole Riscanvi thing. Just maybe set the scene at the beginning. What exactly is this Riscanvi algorithm business? I mean, who makes it? What's it used for? What on earth is Riscanvi?
All right. Yeah. So let's try first to give like a brief overview on as you said, Tim, what Riscanvi is. Well, first of all, I think that also to frame a bit on what the decision machines project is about, and this includes the work that I've been doing in Spain with Riscanvi, but also the work that my colleagues in the Netherlands and Italy have been doing too. We basically we've been digging into the use of predictive algorithms in areas from the public sector which are really sensitive from a human rights perspective. So in the specific case of Riscambi, this is an algorithm that has been used for more than 10 years now in the prisons of the region of Catalonia in Spain. So this algorithm, is a, as you said, a risk assessment algorithm that tries to predict using multiple factors several potential risks, right? So the main one, and actually the one that I focus on in the study that I published with El Confidencial last year, is the risk that an inmate will reoffend using violence when he or she leaves the prison, right? So mainly, so people can understand a bit how, because when you cover like this kind of tools, I think that it's important to think about them as not only a technical tool, but a socio-technical artifact, in the sense that besides the technical details around the tool, it's really important to know, I mean, what is the context in which it is used, and what is also the purpose, or the theoretic purpose, and also the real one, right? I mean, how it's actually used, and what are the specific consequences, right? So just to give a brief description, the score given by Riscambi is used in two main areas, right? Like inside the prison, in the sense that public officials use the score given by the algorithm to make decisions about the inmates, in the sense of the treatment, the rehab programs around him. But also and I think that this is specifically like the most, I would say, controversial, and also like most dangerous use of Riscambi, is how they use it, like how it is used, the risk score, by judges and prosecutors outside the prison, who have to decide whether to give a parole or to give any other permission to the inmate, right? So
Why you say that's risky? Why is it risky? I mean, is this not a sound basis for them to be making decisions?
Well,
they're having to read the future anyway, aren't they? When they're making parole decisions.
I think that everybody can understand that, like, this is something really serious. I mean, with like people that are in prison, and they are basically the decisions taken by judges and prosecutors are really delicate, and they have to take into account like multiple factors. But the thing is, what we found with this project is that the judges and prosecutors, they received the score given by Riscambi without the relevant context. I mean, they just get like this small bit of information that says, because I didn't mention this, but Riscambi basically gives like different kind of risk, like high risk, medium risk, or low risk. So this the judges and the prosecutors, they receive this bit of information without relevant
context around it, and the full picture.
Yeah.
So are you saying that basically, like, if I'm an offender and let's say I'm up for parole, and the person making that decision, or if in a case where a judge or a prosecutor is making a decision, I'm basically, as an offender, I'm reduced to a simple number that's spat out by the machine, and there's a risk that the people using that are going to see it as some kind of definitive scientific indicator of future guilt, rather than just possibly a very flawed, biased number. I mean, you can tell us what you think of these algorithms in a minute, but is that the problem, that there's a kind of, it's dangerous to reduce people to such a simplistic kind of number?
Yeah, exactly. That's exactly the point, Tim. Yeah, I think that makes a big difference with how Riscambi, and this is, I mean, now it's more like an opinion, but since we are like in an informal conversation, right? I think that the use given to the algorithm, like inside the prisons, basically. Yeah, just so people can understand, the factors that are used by the algorithm are introduced in the software by the public officials that work inside the prison, right? I mean, basically those that are in contact, like in daily contact with inmates. So it's a protocol that the algorithm is just like a small portion of this protocol, but they know, or they are aware that the risk given by Riscambi can be flawed, can be not as accurate as it should be. So they just take it like within a context of daily contact with the image, right? But that's in contrast with, I mean, the judges and the prosecutors. They basically, and we gain access to multiple court documents in which judges were basically mentioning the score given by Riscambi, and they were, and there is this, well, experts on data science, and they usually talk about automation bias, right? I mean, when we as humans receive a piece of information that comes from a machine, from an algorithm, we tend to trust on that piece of information way too much, right? I mean, we always think as this score or this assessment is scientific, has no bias, and that's not the case. I mean, the algorithms and AI tools are built based on data, and data is flawed. Data can be flawed. Data is always biased, actually. So I think that when that's one of the main reasons why these kind of tools are it's so delicate to use them, like in this kind of areas. I mean, and again, this is also like more like a subjective analysis, if you can say it, but that's why we have to be so careful on using these kind of tools in areas in which basically the freedom of a human being can depend on a tool like this one, right? So that's one of the things that we basically explain in this story, and also besides like the technical details of the algorithm. I think that the story that we told, I think that it works pretty well, and it's pretty strong, because we really portrayed what are the consequences of the score given by this algorithm to real inmates. Basically, if people can, I don't know if we can share like in the chat like the link to the story, but if the audience look at it, you will see that that we give a huge importance on a human being, Jesus, a real
I was
inmate.
going to ask you about Jesus. This is kind of an avatar for the whole thing. Right? Tell us about him.
Yeah. Also, I think talking more like widely about algorithmic accountability reporting, let's say, because this story and this project is within like this frame. I think that it's really important to of course you have to be rigorous and you have to tell about the technical details, but to to make people understand what can be the consequence, not what can be, what are actually the consequences of this kind of tools. It's really important to use human interest stories. I mean, real human beings explaining how their life has been affected by the score given by an algorithm, right? So in this case, with this story that we published in El Confidencial in Spain, we met Jesus, who by that time he wasn't on parole. I mean, he was very close to finish his to leave the prison. So he was working outside the prison, and he had to go back to the prison a few days a week to sign, and so he was like really close to the end of his to be completely free, right? So basically we met him, and he's a man that speaks in a really, how to say it, like direct and raw way, like how his life has been. I mean, his life has been really harsh. He has gone through a lot of things. He says it he told us, like in the interviews that we had with him, he had done a lot of things bad. I mean, he has done a lot of mistakes, but also as any human being, his life has been made of up and downs, right? So he has been in prison like several times, but he was explaining us how he knew about Riscambi when he was inside the prison, and basically we were able to explain how the different factors used by Riscambi have an influence in the final score of the tool, right? So we have to keep in mind that Riscambi uses, as we said, multiple factors, but this include what kind of crime was committed by the inmate, what is his social and economic background, how was or is his behavior inside the prison, if he had like any kind of drug addiction. So there are like multiple things that have an influence, and if the people go into this study, will see that we use Jesus to explain the inner workings of Riscambi, right? So and I think that's one of the strong points of this study, and I think that, as I was saying, I think that is super relevant to, how to say it, like to put it down, like all these tools that may be seen as something super complex and super, if you focus only on the technical details, and I think that is really difficult to grab the attention of the audience, right?
That's what really struck me about your investigation. When I looked at it, it was, I mean, I find this whole topic kind of abstract and very technical, and just the word algorithm sends fear shuddering down my spine. But what I really loved was the way, if you look at for example, the El Confidential piece, it's a beautifully done piece of interactive multimedia, where you really scroll down and scroll through, and you start to really visualize and feel really almost viscerally how this algorithm is having real effects on an individual's life, possibly destroying somebody's life. And it really starts to become concrete, because I think one of the big challenges of these kinds of stories is, how do you tell it for a public that isn't very technically minded, say, and especially when you may not be very technically minded yourself. You're not a data scientist. You're a journalist. So that was a great achievement, I thought. How did you get in? How did you do that?
Yes, as I was saying, and you just mentioned it, Tim. I'm not a data scientist. I'm a journalist with which actually, I mean, I come from a background of more like studies related with human rights, social issues. So I started reporting on the use of algorithms and AI in the public sector already a few years ago. So of course I've been learning a lot and like in these last few years, but I think that it's crucial to explain. Actually, it's also like, and this is maybe more like a really journals conversation, but I think that is part of one of the goals of this podcast, right? But I think that the fact of myself struggling sometimes also to understand exactly how they work, and having to do like a lot of context interviews and talking to a lot of experts really allows me then to put myself in the boots of someone that knows nothing about this kind of systems, and say, okay, so I'm gonna try to explain it to I want to explain this to my mother or to my grandma, right? I mean, how I should do it, right? So and I think that and this comes like really, this is not something new. I mean, journalism is, I think, that the strongest pieces of journalism always have like this human stories, like this approach, like based on human stories, right? So I think that's super relevant when you report on algorithms and AI tools, because if not, if you don't do it, I mean, you risk yourself to basically to reach only like a small piece of audience. And related to what you said, Tim, from here I want to say again, like, give a huge kudos to the team in El Confidencial. I because I'm a freelance, and I so when I approached to the editors at El Confidencial with this story, we were discussing, I mean, how to how to explain this story and how to tell it like in a nice way. And they got really they really got involved, and they brought to, I mean, they included in the work to be done different journalists and designers and that work in the newsroom of El Confidencial. So I think that this was like a teamwork. Of course, I mean, like all the reporting behind I was super important, but also like how you, I mean, the storytelling, I mean, how you frame the story is super relevant. And this was like a teamwork with the designers, with the data journalists in El Confidencial, and I think that is the only way to I think that this same story without all the multimedia
it would be a very
elements
different story. Yeah,
would be
absolutely. Would be nowhere near as accessible, that's for sure. But okay, so that's the end product, the wonderful packaging and storytelling and human interest of the final product. How did you get there though first? I mean, let's go right to the nitty-gritty of how you were able to recreate this, how the algorithm works, to really peer inside that black box of this decision machine, understand the inner workings of the software. I mean, this is now we might get a little bit sort of pointy-headed and technical, but how did you go about it? And how did journalists who are not technical themselves even begin a project like this? So what are the kind of tricks that you used? And just a reminder to our audience, please do feel free to ask your questions. We'd love to hear from you, and just put them in the chat. But yeah, I'd love to hear more about the methodology, as it were, to unpacking these algorithms.
Yeah. So sure, Tim. So first I want to mention one thing that I will say to I will explain to colleagues when we talk about this specific story. I mean, I this story, this piece in El Confidencial was published last year, 2024, but this was not the first time that I was reporting on Riscambi. I mean, I had previously work on this specific story. I did actually a documentary podcast in Spanish a few years ago in 2021, if I'm not wrong. So basically, I decided to come back to the story, and because I knew that had potential to explain, and since we are talking about that this is something that we haven't really been, that it hasn't really been mentioned here for now, but these systems are really surrounded by opacity, and there is like very low accountability. So there is a huge potential and huge room for journalists to really dig into them. Of course, it's difficult, and now we will go into detail how to do it. But yeah, this idea for reporters and mainly those that work on investigative projects of coming back to the studies, right? I mean, you basically publish a story on a specific topic or a specific tool 1 year, and maybe a few years ago you come back because you know that things may have changed, and sometimes you just come back to it and nothing has changed and there is nothing relevant to be published. But in this case, I knew that there was potential, right? So basically, I work a lot with freedom of information requests. So I did several FOIAs, several requests to the Catalan government. At the same time, I had like all this background, all this knowledge coming from the previous reporting that I had been on, and also I updated it, right? I mean, because as we said already, Riscambi is an algorithm that has been used for more than 10 years, and from journalism had not been covered like really in detail, like for a lot of years. But in contrast, the academy scholars, like in the universities, there has been like some people digging into the details of this, right? So I think that that's also really an important tip for colleagues willing to work on these kind of stories. I mean, talk with I mean, there are tons of papers and scholars and researchers in universities doing amazing work on this kind of tools. So rely also on their work and talk to them and try to turn all this knowledge in compelling stories, right? So I think that was super relevant. And at the same time, of course, I mean, since we are talking about public algorithms, you have to reach to the authorities, right, to the government. So in this case, I did several FOIA requests to the Catalan government, and they gave me just small, which this is pretty common in, at least in Spain, when you do freedom of information requests, it's really common to stonewalling and to basically get nothing. But sometimes you get just small portion of what you ask for. So this was a bit the case, right? So basically, I after a few months, because also this is something very very that happens very often when you do freedom information requests in Spain. I mean, you do the request and it takes a few months to get a response. So yeah, they replied to me and they gave me so people can understand like the weights used. I mean, the weights of the factors used in by Riscambi when calculating the recidivism score, right? So with that piece of information, that was the piece of information that it was missing to basically recreate the inner workings of the algorithm, because before starting this project, I mean, I knew, and they were public, like the list of risk factors used by the algorithm, but we were missing this this piece of information, right? The
I
way.
see. So you could actually say, out of this list of, I don't know how many there were, 30 or 40 different risk factors, they're going to put more weight on this particular risk than this one.
That's it.
And what did you conclude from that? That the weighting system of weighting itself was what? Arbitrary, subjective, biased? What's the problem with? Once you unpacked it, what's the problem with it?
Well, I think that there is one thing that the scholars have been saying about this, and not only scholars, actually, like also NGOs and social workers working with inmates. I mean, this can be full of factors that are really related with the socioeconomic background of the inmates. That means that if you come from a poor neighborhood and you have like you don't have like a like a network or even like a family outside prison, that those are factors that really let's say like punish you, like in the sense that they make Riscambi give you a score that is like a higher risk score. So yeah, I think that is just to frame it this way. Riscambi is full of, the inner workings of Riscambi are full of ideology and political decisions, in the sense of, we all know that prisons are full of people that come from difficult socioeconomic backgrounds. And in the sense, Riscambi, I think that is an artifact, is a tool that is really embedded by this bias, right? It gives a really high importance to things as if you have like once you leave the prison, if you have like a social network and economic network that can really support you, if you and it really relies also on, this is something very important, on and I think that this is like a more like a moral or ethical discussion about this kind of tools. It really relies on the past of someone, right? As we were saying, Jesus, and he explains it himself, he made mistakes in his life. He did really bad things, in the past, but people can change. And also, I think that we as human beings and as a democratic society, we have to think about how much, do we really give people like second opportunity to make things better, and I think that that's something that is really relevant to understand how these algorithms work. And this can be and this can be also, I hadn't mentioned it before, but it's not a unique case in the world. There are like multiple cases of recidivism risk algorithms used in prisons in UK, in other European countries, in the United States. Actually, probably for those more into this kind of reporting, know well the case of Compass and the amazing work done by ProPublica with their study on, the title was Machine Bias, that basically they were able to prove how this Compass algorithm was biased and was basically discriminating inmates and offenders, Afro-American offenders, against the rest, right? So yeah, it's important to keep in mind, how to, that the people that is like inside prisons, of course, they've made mistakes, but how much do we rely on their past and or to make decisions about their present or their future, right? I think that's more like a moral dilemma,
moral,
right?
philosophical dilemma, that one, isn't it?
Yeah,
cuts right to the heart of the whole, what is justice and what is rehabilitation and all of that. It strikes me that the EU does have some new legislation. It's called the Artificial Intelligence Act. And I think that legislation is supposed to try to kind of rein in the harms caused by this fast developing technology, algorithms, AI, all of that. How effective is this legislation in controlling this kind of problem? Dealing with this kind of problem? Does it put a stop to, or could it put a stop to, shall we say, flawed and biased, the use of flawed and biased algorithms? Or is it just does it have the teeth required, or does it need to be rethought, that legislation?
Yeah, well, I have to say first, Tim, that I follow it, of course, like the recent developments around the AI Act, but I haven't been covering like in detail, and I haven't been reporting specifically. And there are like great colleagues that really work on digital policies and the laws coming from the EU in order to regulate this kind of systems. But so probably some people in the audience knows this already, but the AI Act proposes to categorize like the systems the AI tools used. Doesn't matter if it's the public or the private sector, based on the potential risks to the rights of the European citizens, right? The point is that they basically put like certain specific requirements regarding transparency and so on to those systems considered of high risk. Then there are some others that are considered of unacceptable risk, and those are the ones that are banned. But just to go to the point, I mean, to systems like Riscambi, as far as I know, it is not yet clear. I mean, it is not yet clear if they are considered even as AI systems. I mean, this is, and people have to know this. Riscambi does not use, is not an AI tool. Is an algorithm. I mean, it doesn't use any kind of artificial intelligence techniques such as machine learning, which is one of the most common ones. Like when we talk about this kind of algorithms. So the point is that, as far as I know, and what I've been talking recently with people and experts that are following the AI Act, a system like Riscambi would not fall under this legislation. That means that because it doesn't feel like the requirements given by the European Commission to consider it like an AI system. I mean, it is used in a really sensitive area, and actually like there is a big debate, and I think that and also this is more a personal opinion, but the AI Act is a first approach, but it has a lot of loopholes, and it has and for example, this kind of systems, as I was saying, I mean, I think that recently, like the European Commission are publishing like some guidelines to basically define and to give like some definitions of what is considered an AI tool and what is not. And as far as I know, a system as Riscambi would not fall under any of these definitions, right? So we wouldn't. The thing is that it would not need to go through like all these requirements. But I might be wrong, and as I was saying,
if you're right about that, then I suppose that means law enforcement agencies, anyone else in the justice system, pretty much has free reign to use these algorithms, and whether we call them AI or not, to in any way they like. And if there are problems in the systems, that's a problem.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, and actually, like one of the main, what experts have been saying, like in the recent months, because as some people may know, I mean, this is a regulation that have been in discussion for many years, and last year was approved by the Parliament and the Council and so on. So it's going to be, I mean, it's being implemented already, but it's in the process, right? And it's going to take like a few months and even a couple of years to get fully implemented. So and one of the main, let's say, loopholes, or one of the main things is that the European regulators say that those systems used for national security and certain areas related with law enforcement are like, in a sense, like leaving aside like that they cannot. I mean, that this in these areas actually governments can use these kind of systems, right? So
They're kind of
it's kind of
exempt. Yeah.
it's kind of complex, but I'm afraid that first at this moment, Riscambi would not fall under this new regulation.
Got it. I'm hoping we'll get some questions from our audience. In the meantime, we do have a comment from Dumi. Thank you, Dumi, for this. She thanks you very much for bringing some of these practices to light. She also shares a link in the comments here to a research project, and we'll put this link in the show notes of the podcast when it's published. In the meantime, you can see it here. But this looks like a very interesting piece of research that looking at algorithmic data collection and processing. So thank you very much for that, Dumi. In the meantime, maybe we do have a question also from Dumi. So thank you. She asks, what is the expertise of the staff who manage the data collected for these algorithms? Do law enforcement agencies have personnel trained to handle sensitive data and use AI ethically? So are the people doing it the right people? Are they equipped to do the job?
Yeah, that's a great question, Dumi. I mean, as far as I know, for the case of Riscambi, as I was saying, like the professionals, those that have to feel like to introduce the data that is used by Riscambi to give a score are the public officials working inside the prison, right? Like social workers, psychologists, lawyers, and so on. So I'm aware that for this specific case, they are trained to use this tool. So yeah, they are trained and but to be completely honest, I don't know in which extent. That means and this is also like part of one of the things that we are probably missing from the equation a bit, like a real analysis, real accountability on how public officials deal with this tool. I mean, I in the course of my reporting, I did talk with a couple of public officials that work like inside the prisons, and they were explaining me that they get like training, and that they are explaining like how this can be works and how it has to be used, and also how it has been updated with the years, like the specific weights and so on. But there is also big opacity around this, right? I mean, and moving away from a bit from Riscambi, I had been investigating and reporting on other algorithms and AI tools used in the public sector in Spain, and for example with different project that I've been working on, and that we recently published a story also in El Confidencial. This is a completely different system that is used by the Social Security in Spain, that basically assess the health status of those workers on sick leave. I'm aware because I talked in the past to multiple doctors working on the Social Security department in Spain, that they even didn't know, the name of the system that they were dealing with, and they were not even, sometimes these tools are really introduced in the public sector from like really from the top, like the senior public officials taking decisions about a specific agency or public department say, okay, it's a good idea to use an AI tool or a data-driven system in this specific area. But then there is a lack of really those that are actually like dealing every day with this tool. In many cases, they they have a really low knowledge on how it works and how and what are the potential risks and so on. So, and this is also part of this hype and techno optimism that I think that is still really alive through multiple public agencies and departments in the governments of Europe that say now everything is AI and now everything and AI can be it can be useful in certain cases and in certain areas, but in many others it can make things worse. Just to make it clear. So I think that this is also important to keep in mind, and the same. I mean, when reporting on this kind of tools, there are multiple approaches. I mean, the inner workings of the system, if they are flawed or biased, and if you can actually prove that. And for that, you have to gain access to a lot of technical information, but also, of course, what are the consequences on the people that get affected by the results of these algorithms? And the case of Jesus but also another story is, I mean, how they are actually introduced in the public agencies, right? I mean, how public officials deal with these systems, and how they are informed or not, how they are trained or not, because at the end, I mean, we are talking about public money too. So that's also another area of reporting that can be really relevant when covering this kind of systems.
Indeed. We have a question from Dinara. She says, "Thank you very much for this important story. Do you have an idea of how the general public perceives the issue, especially in relation to the prison industrial complex? There's often a lack of understanding how such violations of privacy and rights eventually trickle down to the rest of the public. If you could share any conversations you've witnessed after the investigation, that would be great."
Mm-hmm. That's a great question, Dinara. I mean, I think that like covering like prisons. I mean, covering what happens like inside the prisons and like the, as you call it, like prison industrial complex is fascinating and is super needed because we tend to. I think that we as citizens, as society, we tend to think about prisons as something that are like really far away, and that they are basically that what happens inside there is like and I think that, for example, this specific case, this specific story on the use of this data-driven algorithm, right, is a good example of how things that happen like within prisons and with people that with inmates, with people that are in prison, is often really not properly covered by the media, right? Is we tend to think as of the prisons as areas where human rights, privacy, and so on can be in a sense violated because these people, they are offenders. I mean, they committed a crime, right? And I think that that doesn't say anything good about us as societies, right? And about as citizens, right? Actually, like I remember, like after publishing this investigation, so talking with colleagues, but also people who are not journalists, they were telling me how they had no idea of not only like the fact of these algorithms being used with inside the prisons, but also, I mean, how the decisions and the protocols that work inside the prisons are actually happening, right? So I don't know if this answers like very precise, like your question, Dinara, but I think that there is huge room for journalists to actually be more interested and really cover like what's also from a critical perspective and focusing on the potential violations of privacy and human rights to that might be happening, like in prisons, and this is a story that, yeah, of course, Riscambi is being used in the prisons of Catalonia. But yeah, I want to mention that just a few weeks ago, some colleagues from a Spanish non-profit organization called Fundación Cibio, who are also journalists, they publish a great investigation on a very similar system to Riscambi that is used in the prisons of the rest of Spain, right? Like in the other area, I mean, not in Catalonia, but because Catalonia basically has the Catalan government manages the prisons within the territory, but the rest of the prisons in Spain are managed by the state, and they uncover that a quite similar system. It's not the same, and yeah, there are like but some details, but it works in a with a similar in a similar framework, right? So yeah, this is crazy, I mean, because this system has been used in the prisons of Spain, like for, I think that, I don't remember now, but for more than 10 years too, and it's quite mad that no media organization had previously covered this, right? So yeah, to your question, I think that there is huge room for us as journalists to go in depth into this world of prisons and how the rights of inmates and the lives of inmates might be affected by the protocols and the tools and the decisions taken by the state, right?
But I think it's really important that journalism looks at the rights of the bad guys as well as the just ordinary people and so on. That shows that journalism is really doing its job properly. So I'm really glad that you've done this. Applying journalistic scrutiny to issues that affect people who are often out of the public's concern. Who cares about the rights of people who've committed crimes, for example? So I think that's really important. My question to you is, do you think there's a danger that what essentially is being trialed inside in the darkness of prisons, where people don't really give a damn that much, that could then seep out into other parts of society, and we might see that these kind of algorithms and AI technology starting to infect everywhere, not just the bad guys, but everybody? Are you worried about that?
Yeah, one thing that I think that colleagues that also work on this algorithm accountability bit and that have been covering also the use of these systems in really sensitive areas in Europe. If you go through the work of journalists and researchers, you can see that is a trend in which governments tend to kind of experiment, let's say, or give a first test to these systems with people that are vulnerable, usually. I mean, and the work done by my colleagues in this project, Decision Machines, for instance, Evelyn Schott in the Netherlands, she revealed how the government is using also a recidivism risk algorithm with minors in the Netherlands, with young people between 12 and 18 years old, and very often in this case, for example, in the Netherlands, they are minors that come from difficult backgrounds and so on. if you look to other investigations, and I have to mention, for example, like in general, like the whole project from Lighthouse Reports, working on the use of predictive algorithms in welfare policies around Europe, you see a pattern in which governments tend to start using these systems in areas where people affected are quite vulnerable. I mean, and we can mention people that are receiving any kind of social benefit because they are unemployed, or because they don't have economic they have a bad economic situation. So there is this idea a bit of using vulnerable citizens as guinea pigs a bit of how these tools can be used, and what are the implications. So I think that's very worrying. I mean, and that's very, very problematic, because I think that, of course, this is also a personal opinion, but I think that governments and states should be especially careful, and especially give enough guarantees to when dealing with this kind of citizens, right? So I think that this is a great question, and I think that the answer, people can just read like the amazing work done by other colleagues, as I mentioned, the Lighthouse Reports, but not only, on how these systems are specifically used in areas in which people affected are might be vulnerable, and so that's a problem, and that's something that I think that in Europe governments should really be conscious about this, and keep in mind how potentially how they can really harm people's rights in contexts in which they already have like a difficult life, and a difficult reality to face. So
Well, thank you, Pablo. That brings us to the end of our hour. But congratulations on fantastic work to you and all your team members. We're sorry they couldn't be here to add to this conversation, but it's been really fascinating. And thank you so much for sharing your insights. Thank you too to our audience. Appreciate your questions and interest. And please do stay tuned for the next episode of IJ4EU Confidential, coming soon. So all the best to you. Thank you very much, Pablo.
Thank you, Tim. Thank you to everyone.